Hello there, Jeff Erdman, E.D.S. Inc. Shandon. Welcome you again to another video. We're going to talk a little bit about why I ended up using the Oliver 25A wood lathe to mill metal with. Well, for the first part of it is that my Monarch isn't up and running yet. I don't have power over to it. There's some work that I have to do on it, fix some handles and that sort of thing, and so it's a little ways out from being used, probably 5 to 6 months. So the first reason I needed it for is I needed to make a handle. My dual bandsaw has a blade welder on it, and the shear had a handle, but it wasn't the original handle, and I'm not sure what the original handle really looked like. But the handle they had looked like it was a long bolt that they'd screwed into it and then cut off the hex head. And it wasn't finished very well, wasn't very sturdy. In fact, it kind of curled off the machine in a bow shape. So I pulled that off and I went over to my Oliver and I began to cut this, which is the handle that I made. And if you want to zoom up on this a little bit, it just came out of some straight round stock. I rounded off the top, and I had to make this little insert so that it'd get past the bracket on the welder and the threads. And so what I did is on the Oliver, I put it into the 3-jaw chuck. I drilled, I tapped, and then I inserted an all thread into it to screw into my machine. Now what I was trying to do is knurl this so that there was something to grasp onto. It was a little bit slick, just being straight steel. So I was trying to knurl that, and I couldn't figure out how to get my knurling tool into my machine. And I'll show you why in a few moments. Well, I'll show you right now. This is my knurling tool. It's designed for the mount that's on my Monarch lathe. And so the tool post holder, or the tool holder, is only for about a 1/4 inch square stock. So you notice that that's not going to work. And so I tried to take this and just press it up against the part I was going to knurl. With very sad results. I don't know if you can come in on this here. You can barely see any knurling on it. And so I thought, boy, it'd be sure cool if I could use this knurling tool on the Oliver lathe. So that's what got me started thinking about building a new tool post holder. And I'll show you the tool holder. This is the post holder that's on the Oliver lathe, and it holds just a little 1/4 inch cutter. And and this mounts down into a round mount on the lathe, and so whatever I made would have to mount just like this does. It'd have to go right down into that round mount and to work. So I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, I can do that. I can figure something out. Before I show you what the end result is, and there will be a video on the whole process of it, I just want to show the reasoning for it in this video. We'll take you over to the lathe. So this is my Oliver lathe. This is a 1943 Oliver lathe. It was originally used up in the San Francisco Bay Area by the Navy to build ships, and it was auctioned off after, I think it was somewhere back in the 70s or 80s, and to a private party who held it for a while, and then another guy bought it from him, and I bought it from him. So that's how I arrived at it. This has got a unique speed control on it. You have to start in 600 RPMs. And then while it's running, you have to pull this out and you have to turn it, let's see, counterclockwise, and push it back in before that spindle stops turning and into your next speed. And it goes up to 1200 RPM, I believe. Yeah, 1200 RPM. So it goes up at about 300 RPMs per segment, and there's 4 speeds in it. Kind of a neat little design that they had there, Oliver had put together. And so a neat design. We kind of restored this. We're not 100% complete, but we put new paint on it, went through and cleaned it all up, fixed up the tags on it, and we now have a 3-jaw chuck mounted to the lathe. I got a piece of plastic in here. This is for a project that we're making door stops for a penitentiary. We'll probably have a video on that when we start producing them. Right now we're just into the prototypes, and they have to be pretty hefty, as you can imagine, to resist an inmate's rancor. So anyway, this is the tool post holder, and if you could come up onto the machine here and you can show where that tool post goes. I'll go grab the post real quick. Come on up here close to the machine and see this. The tool post, the tool holder goes into your. Whoops! I went and cut myself, didn't I? It goes right into this hole here, and it has an Allen wrench screw that tightens it down in there. So my thought was I have to find a piece of metal that has a shaft on it that is this dimension, but something that would come out much bigger, so that I could mount a 1-inch tool in there. And if I could mount a 1-inch tool in there, then I could use the tooling from my Monarch lathe. So that's what my intent was, is to use this base, be able to mount a tool post into that would hold 1-inch tooling. Then I could use my 1-inch tooling from my Monarch on this, and I can also use my knurling tool. So what I want to show you next is what I accomplished. So what I took, this was a boring bar originally, and it was this 2-inch diameter all the way down to this point. This was the cutoff. This used to be on this side of it, and this is what how the tooling was fastened into the machine, the collet or whatever you wanted to do. So what I did is I cut this off. Then I took the diameter that was here, and I took it off with that little 1/4-inch tooling that I'd showed you earlier. This little tool here, it took all that material off for me. And then we took it over into the mill, and we took this out with 2 passes. We took a 7/8" bit and ran it through here, and then we took our 1-inch bit and ran it through here to get our slot for our 1-inch tooling. And this fits very nicely and tightly into this tool holder, as you can see. So the next thing, what was kind of nice about using this old boring bar is that this Allen key and this Allen key were already there. So I didn't have to drill and tap those. So that took care of my side. But I needed to have a cap. And since my knurling bar was taller than 1 inch, I had to make it so that this could fit in there as well. So to make the cap, I went around through all my scrap and was looking for a piece of material, and I found a piece that looked similar to this. In fact, this is the piece. It didn't have the slot here. This was all round stock all the way up to here, but it did have this slight little ridge in it. I don't know if you can see that, a little lip right here. Now this lip was 2 1/8 inch, this little flange around here, and it didn't have these holes in it yet, but it did have this little post here with a 5/8 11 tapped hole. And so all I had to do is I had to cut this off from this, which we did with our bandsaw, and then faced it off. And then the tap hole didn't come all the way through, so I had to tap it on through. Then I put this onto my lathe, and I took this down to a 2-inch diameter to match this and the tool post holder. We drilled our 2 holes into it while it was mounted on this, and right on down through, and then I just tap these holes out here, and then we have our cap piece. Again, I mounted this with a couple of V-blocks into my vise on the milling machine, and we made 2 passes on this, cleaning this up to 1 inch. So for an inside dimension. So this fits right on here like so, one way or the other. There we go. Like this. We have 2 cap screws that go in here and hold it. And you don't have to take this off really at all. It can stay on here all the time because your tooling all slides into it, which is kind of nice. I'd had this, which was kind of a little parting tool I was using on the plastic I have in the lathe now. And so this just fastens down and never really needs to be pulled off. It can just stay there. So then we can put our tools in here, like so. And this top comes down, screws down on top, and the 2 sides into the side to mount that. So we were able to use this as well, and the same sort of process. We just mount that in there, like so. And then now we have a knurling tool for our Oliver lathe. And that's what we were after originally, is just to figure out how to put the knurling tool in. But with using a couple of scraps we had around the shop, we were able to make a tool holder that actually holds our 1-inch tooling as well as our knurling tool. So that turned out really sweet for us. One of the things that we had done before that is we'd made a handle for this is on our Ajax milling machine. This was originally a plastic handle, and the plastic was cracking. It'd catch your fingers and pinch them as you're trying to use it. And so we figured we needed to make a new one. And so we popped off the pin, got some of the dimensions off the plastic, and then put this onto the Oliver 25A. And this was all milled out with that 1/4-inch tooling that I showed you before, right here, with this tool post and the 1/4-inch tooling. But of course I couldn't do the knurling, so as soon as I got this knurling tool set up, I was able to take this, pull it off the machine. This just pops off. It's kind of like a tapered pin that's in there, so you can pop that right off and then hammer it back on again. So we popped this off, we pulled this out, put it into the chuck, and we were able to do that knurling there. Now this little line right here is kind of a goof up that we did when we were cutting it with that 1/4-inch tooling. We got a little bit deep. Since we don't have a tapering attachment for the Oliver 25A, it was kind of like trying to sink it as you went to get the taper on the handle. So that's why we ended up with that little bit of a misfigure there. But all in all, it didn't turn out bad, and of course it doesn't have to be beautiful. It's just for our old Ajax mill. So, but it turned out real nice, and it's been working real fine for us on the mill since we've made that up. So nice little things you can do even with an old wood lathe, making metal parts that you need for other tools as they come in handy. So that was kind of what I wanted to share with you with this video, is why, the reasons for it, some of the things that we've done with it thus far, And of course we're going to be doing quite a few other things with that lathe too. I'd actually bought the Monarch because I was anticipating doing that work for the CMC, which is the penitentiary, and I knew that we had several hundred pieces to make. And but I found that once I put that chuck on the Oliver, it does just fine doing it. So we might not use the Monarch for that job. We'll be using that for some other projects down the road that I need to do. Well, I thought it might be fun to use this old Oliver 25A to do some knurling. So why don't you join me for a second? We'll see what we can't do. This is kind of a ratty piece of metal here, but I haven't finished that out at all, but we'll give it a shot and see if we can't make her look pretty. Away from us there. Not too bad. Looks pretty. Put a little bit of variance in this thing. And not too bad for a first-time knurler, huh? Got the wrong end on this thing. There you go. Old 25A. With an amateur working at it. There we go. That'll give me some grip. Thanks for watching.